Rimuru, Lumiel, Angel of Void by Rimu_Kai Love and Pride. Third person POV nestled deep within the radiant folds of the mountain of stars. The palace gleamed like a divine jewel embedded into the very bones of the world. Crystalline spires extended toward the heavens, each etched with ancient runes that pulsed faintly with starlight. The mountain itself was a remnant of Veldanava's will, a sacred peak suspended within a bubble of distorted time and cosmic density. The palace was shaped of polished obsidian and marble like void glass, its walls a seamless blend of light and shadow. Luminous waterfalls flowed sideways, defying gravity, and pools of stardust shimmered with divinations yet to be spoken. Here, the few primordial angels chosen to remain resided, each chamber a testament to divine history, untouched by decay or change. The silence of this sanctum was broken as a ripple cleaved through space. Two figures emerged from a tear in reality. The first was Lumiel, radiant and androgynous, his galaxy blue hair swaying as if caught in celestial currents. Beside him, stepping into existence with regal poise, was a breathtakingly beautiful woman. She had long light lavender hair that trailed like mist, her golden eyes sharp and unreadable, and black dragon-like horns curling proudly from her skull. This was Lavenda, the eighth primordial demon, elegant, intelligent, and dangerously arrogant. Lavenda blinked once, her gaze sweeping across the grandeur of the mountain palace. "What is this, please?" she asked, her tone clipped yet laced with cool amusement. Lumiel turned to her with a faint smile. "This is where I'm staying for now. A resting point among the stars." Lavenda raised a delicate eyebrow, lips parting in a faint smirk. "I see." She folded her arms beneath her ample chest. "A quaint dwelling, for someone of your caliber." He chuckled softly. "Come, I'll introduce you to the others." Her golden eyes narrowed faintly. "Others? There are more people?" "Just a few," Lumiel replied, already floating gently forward as if gravity were a mere suggestion. Lavenda followed at her own pace, each step deliberate, regal, unhurried. Minutes later, they arrived at a large circular living room. Soft starlight filtered through crystal domes above, casting glows of violet and silver upon the velvet couches and suspended gardens of glowing flora. Seated with his legs lazily crossed was Veldanava, midnight black hair falling like a curtain around his shoulders, eyes half-lidded with amusement. Facing him on separate couches sat several familiar faces: Orin, arms behind his head with a smug look; Dino, laid back as always; Obera, composed and sharpied; Garasha, frowning slightly; and Pico, legs dangling, watching with mild curiosity. Veldanava looked up immediately, his smile widening. "Ho, Lumakun, you return." His tone was playful. "What about what I asked?" Lumiel stepped into the room, Lavenda following with silent grace. "Jahil's experiments were destroyed," he replied. "But I bet he'll restart soon enough." Velda laughed. "He does act like Twilight, huh?" Lumiel nodded, his expression sobering. "That reminds me, Twilight was killed." A sudden stillness. "What?" Dino said, sitting up straighter. Obera narrowed her eyes. "Explain." "Luminous," Lumiel said simply. "His own daughter. It was not a clean end." Shock radiated like an unseen tremor. "No way, Twilight," Garasha whispered. Pico's mouth dropped open, blinking furiously. "But he was strong. Luminous killed her own mother?" Orin snorted. "They are insane." Veldanava exhaled slowly, stroking his chin. "I see, another tragedy, but I suppose it was inevitable." His gaze drifted to Lavenda, who stood still as moonlight. "And I see you brought a friend." Lumiel gestured lazily. "Ho, right. This is Lavenda. A primordial demon. I met her in Jahil's kingdom." Silence dropped like a weight. Orin stood up, eyes narrowing. "A demon?" Pico crossed her arms, voice high and pouty. "TCH. Why'd you bring her here, Lumelsama?" Garasha's lips thinned. Demons aren't exactly trustworthy companions. Obera's expression darkened. Even among primordials, demons act with their own rules. Dino glanced at Lavenda, shrugging. Not a fan, honestly." Lavenda's eyes sparkled, not with warmth, but iciness. "You all yap like mutts in heat," she said smoothly. "And yet none of you stand above me. Perhaps jealousy is common among angels." "Watch it, demon," Orin growled, only for Lavenda to tilt her head mockingly. "Watch yourself, little dog. I've slain entities older than your concept of time. Lavenda, Lumiel said casually, meet Orin, one of my subordinates. And the others are primordial angels. Dino, Pico, Garasha, and Obera. That's Velda Nava, so-called creator god. Hey! Velda Nava stood up, pointing dramatically. So-called? I'll have you know I'm the original god himself. Lavenda didn't even flinch. How quaint. A god with an inferiority complex. Do you often shout to be taken seriously? Velda Nava's eye twitched. Orin burst into muffled laughter, while even Dino cracked a grin. Before further tension could erupt, two more figures entered from a corridor. Myra, calm as ever in her flowing black robes and blindfold, and beside her, a stunning high elf with emerald green eyes and blonde hair tied in a braid. Sylvia. Welcome back, Lumil-sama, Myra said respectfully. Sylvia, more emotional, rushed forward and kissed Lumiel on the cheek. I was worried. You don't have to, Lumiel said with a warm chuckle. You knew I'd be fine. Sylvia turned toward Lavenda. Who's this girl? Lavenda offered a graceful, cool nod. I am primordial demon Lavender. Call me Lavenda. Sylvia smiled brightly. Nice to meet you, Lavendachan. Myra followed with a polite bow. It is a pleasure to meet a primordial demon. Lavenda's reply was slow and precise. At least some here are raised with manners. Myra. Sylvia. You have my respect. She turned her eyes on the others, voice dropping a note. The rest of you, have my tolerance, for now. Geez, Pico muttered. She's worse than Orin, she's beautiful but terrifying, Dino admitted. Garasha just folded her arms. She's cold. Velda Nava stretched, letting out a yawn before grinning. I see both counterparts meet, instead of fighting, they're friends, huh? Lumiel tilted his head. What do you mean? Velda shrugged, eyes twinkling with mischief. Nothing. Just don't worry. The room fell into a momentary hush, filled only with the humming sound of starlight drifting past the domed ceiling. The meeting had begun, and the dynamics were already shifting. Lavenda remained unmoved, golden eyes watching all from above, as if she were a queen among lesser stars. And Lumiel? He only smiled faintly, as if the chaos were just another note in the quiet song of his existence. The Palace of Stars, nestled within the craggy slopes of the Mountain of the Cosmos, stretched endlessly into the horizon like a divine relic carved by the hands of a god. Its obsidian towers shimmered under the eternal starlight that glowed over the heavens, the constellations themselves seemingly bowing before its creator's will. Every spire was tipped with radiant crystal that pulsed softly with energy, like the beating heart of the universe itself. Between the ivory arches and void-black walkways, the palace exuded a cold majesty, timeless and unshaken. It was here, in this sacred and grandiose place, that Velda Nava and a select few of the primordial angels resided, undisturbed by the flow of the lower realms. The smooth sound of footsteps echoed gently against the marble floors as Lumiel walked with Sylvia and Lavenda trailing beside him. Their presence seemed to bring warmth and chill simultaneously. Sylvia's radiance was like a calm flame, while Lavenda's air was like the frost of forgotten nobility. Sylvia wore a flowing silver and emerald dress, befitting a high elf of her status, while Lavenda, primordial demon of pride, walked with icy grace. Her long lavender hair trailed behind her like an imperial banner, her golden eyes indifferent to everything except what she deemed worthy. It's bigger than I thought, Lavenda remarked coldly, her arms folded beneath her chest. Her golden gaze roamed across the towering windows and the endless expanse of the glowing corridors. Sylvia smiled, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. I felt the same when I first arrived. But it makes sense, doesn't it? Velda Navasama did create this palace, after all. Lumiel chuckled, hands behind his back as he walked ahead of them. I see you're starting to like it here, Lavenda. Don't be foolish, Lavenda replied with a tilt of her head. I merely find the architecture acceptable. There's elegance in structure. That's all. Her tone was level, as if expressing favor was a rare concession. I see. Lumiel nodded with a small smile. Then, Lavenda's voice cut the quiet again. Mind if I ask something? She stopped, her heels clicking gently as she turned to face Lumiel and Sylvia. As far as I know, angels and demons cannot reproduce. Biologically incompatible. And spiritually opposed. Sylvia blinked, surprised by the directness. Lumiel, too, paused, his expression unreadable. Lavender narrowed her eyes slightly, lips curling into a cool smirk. So from that standpoint, your relationship was a failure, wasn't it? For a moment, silence hovered between them. Then Sylvia chuckled softly, her smile warm and mature. You're right, Lavendachan. But our love wasn't built on the need to produce children. I never wanted Lumiel for what he could give me, I simply wanted him. Well said, Lumiel murmured. Besides, there are ways. Perhaps not natural ones, but I've discovered a potential path. Still, I believe it's not the right time yet. Lavenda's gaze sharpened. So there is a way. I see. Then, surprisingly, she offered a shallow nod. In that case, disregard my previous words, they were premature. Sylvia smiled gently, looking at Lavenda. No harm done, Lavendachan. You got a sharp mind, I admire that. Before Lavenda could reply, a familiar voice called out. Who, Lumiel, you're here. Another voice followed, softer but no less bright. Big brother said you returned. All three turned as two figures stepped into view, Velzard and Velgrind, the sisters of Velda Nava. Velzard, with her frosty aura and snow-white hair, contrasted her fiery sister, Velgrind, whose dark blue hair and burning eyes were as wild as a desert storm. Lumiel raised a hand lazily. Ah, it's you two. Lavenda glanced at them briefly. And who are they? They're Veldanava's younger sisters, Lumiel replied. Velzard and Velgrind. Both true dragons. Sylvia added, that makes 3 true dragons in here, including them. Lavenda tilted her head ever so slightly. So, 3? I assumed? 4, actually, Lumiel corrected. You're forgetting Veldora. He's a bit wild. He left the palace a while back. Velzard crossed her arms, eyeing Lavenda with quiet scrutiny. So this girl looks like a demon. Velgrind stepped forward, narrowing her gaze. She doesn't just look like one, she feels like one. Obviously, Velgrind, Velzard huffed. Can't you be a little less blunt? Can you shut up for once? Velgrind snapped back. Lavenda smirked slightly, observing the exchange with an arched brow. I see. A natural rivalry between sisters. I like that. Passion mixed with contempt. It's entertaining. Velzard shot her a glance. Entertaining, huh? That's a cold way to put it. Velgrind chuckled. She's got the demon attitude, all right. They're always like this, Lumiel sighed. You'll get used to it. Sylvia giggled behind a hand, but it's charming in its own way. Maybe, Lavenda replied flatly, in a chaotic sort of fashion. As the conversation drifted into quiet again, Lumiel gestured down another hallway. Come on. Let me show you your room. How much time do you have before you return to hell? Sylvia asked softly as they began walking. Lavenda answered with a flick of her hand. Roughly a month, give or take. Lumiel nodded. If you'd like, I could do something about that. Lavenda turned her gaze toward him. Such as, Sylvia offered a hopeful smile. He could give you a permanent physical body, one that lets you remain here freely. It would take some time to craft, Lumiel admitted. It's not easy, especially with your level of power. Lavenda was silent for a moment before nodding. I see. So be it. I'll wait. I'm not in a hurry, and I trust your ability. Perfect, Lumiel said with a slight smile. The trio continued down the corridor, their steps echoing softly. The palace, vast and eternal, stood as a silent witness to a strange new harmony forming. One between angel and demon, fire and frost, emotion and calculation. Lavenda, ever cold and prideful, had found herself tolerating, perhaps even respecting, those within these halls. Even if she'd never admit it aloud. Except for Lumiel, Sylvia, and Myra, the rest were irrelevant. But perhaps, in time, even the most arrogant demon could find love in the most unexpected of places. The month passed with the serenity of drifting clouds above a frozen lake, calm on the surface, but stirring underneath. Within the hallowed halls of the Palace of Stars, time moved gently, like a dream preserved by divinity itself. The endless corridors of light and shadow bore witness to a slow, inevitable change. In that time, Lavenda remained within its marbled confines, her presence like a phantom of violet and frost. Unwelcoming to most, but not without her silent admirers. She spent many of her days alone, wandering the palace's ethereal gardens, its void-lit libraries, or the cosmic balconies where stars bloomed like flowers in the void. Yet, for all her pride and cold disdain, there were times when Lavenda accepted the company of few, strangely enough, It was not the ones who offered kindness most eagerly that she tolerated, but those who approached her with calm strength. With Myra, there was an odd understanding. Though younger in appearance and bound by loyalty to Lumiel, Myra's calmness seemed to resonate with Lavenda's own stillness. Their conversations were sparse, brief, and often laden with silence. But they spoke volumes through glances. Occasionally, they would sit in the inner garden, not speaking, just watching the astral lilies sway in the unseen wind. Sylvia remained a constant presence. Her warmth never overwhelmed, her smiles never intruded. Over tea, Sylvia would speak of the world, of love, of life. Lavenda would listen, arms crossed, expression cool, but she never left those talks early. And in time, she began asking questions, almost as if curious. It surprised many that Velzard and Velgrind also grew close to her, in their own strange ways. Velzard often debated philosophy and warfare with Lavenda in the crystalline halls, their cold temperaments clashing with precise, intellectual force. Velgrind, fiery and impulsive, argued with Lavenda more than anyone. But there was a mutual, unspoken respect beneath their constant verbal spars. The dragon admired the demon's arrogance, while Lavenda acknowledged Velgrind's raw strength. However, not all bonds formed easily. Orin had no patience for her. He found her too aloof, too indifferent, and once mockingly called her the Ice Princess of Hell. Garasha barely acknowledged her, hating the way Lavenda looked down on everyone else. Obera's cold elegance turned to disdain in Lavenda's presence. The emotionless angel despised the demon's superiority complex. Pico would glare, arms folded tightly, whispering curses under her breath. Dino, usually lazy and detached, showed uncharacteristic irritation whenever Lavenda entered the room. "She gives me the creeps," he muttered more than once. Lavenda never returned their hostility, she simply didn't acknowledge them at all. But to Lumiel, she was different. At first, her eyes would follow him subtly, tracking his movement across the grand chamber or through the starlit garden paths. He fascinated her, confused her. He was not like other angels, too emotional, too aware. He didn't command respect through obedience, but through presence. And worst of all, he was kind without being weak. Sylvia noticed it before anyone else. She would catch Lavenda glancing a moment too long, standing a little too close. Her voice softening when Lumiel addressed her. Once, she saw Lavenda's fingers brush Lumiel's arm as he passed her something, an accident, perhaps, but her hand lingered longer than necessary. Even Myra raised an eyebrow during one shared tea session. "I think she's warming up to you," Sylvia whispered to Lumiel one evening. Lumiel tilted his head. "She hides it well. She doesn't try to hide it," Sylvia said, sipping tea. "That's what makes it interesting." Meanwhile, Lumiel had begun work on the gift he promised her, a physical vessel. Within his private sanctum, he labored with divine precision. The process was delicate, requiring the essence of the astral realm to be bound within a shell powerful enough to house a demon lord of Lavenda's magnitude. Using fragments of the void, mixed with his own divine authority, Lumiel shaped the body over days and nights, imbuing it with permanence, grace, and beauty. As days turned to weeks, the creation neared completion. Sylvia could feel it in the air. The quiet energy of something transformative. And she could feel it in Lavenda, too, an emotion beginning to crack through her perfect, prideful armor. One evening, the stars above the palace glowed brighter than usual. The silver corridors gleamed with quiet magic, and the gardens beyond shimmered with light. Lavenda stood by the balcony, hair swaying in the cool astral breeze. Behind her, Sylvia stepped into view, her footsteps gentle. "Lavendachan," she called softly. Lavenda turned, blinking slowly. "Yes? Come with me. Let's talk." The demon tilted her head slightly, but nodded. "Very well." They walked together in silence, moving through the quiet halls until they reached Sylvia's private chamber. The room was serene, lined with white-blue crystal and delicate ornaments. Neither overly lavish nor plain. It reflected her personality, warm and composed. Sylvia gestured to the couch, and both women sat. Lavenda crossed one leg over the other, resting her chin on her hand. "So, why bring me here?" Sylvia smiled gently. "I just wanted to ask something." Lavenda blinked. "Ask what?" Sylvia looked at her, eyes kind but piercing. "Lavendachan, are you perhaps in love with Lumiel? Don't worry, I won't be mad, just tell me." For the first time in ages, the proud, cold demon looked uncertain. Her golden eyes widened just a little, and her lips parted in the smallest gasp. Her usual composed cheeks flushed the faintest shade of pink, almost invisible in the starlight. But it was there. Her composure didn't shatter, but it wavered. Her answer didn't come. The silence, however, said enough. The weight of silence hung between them for a moment, heavy like a storm cloud that refused to burst. Lavender, her golden eyes flickering with concealed thoughts, stared into the stillness of Sylvia's chamber. Her posture was as unyielding as ever, poised with regal indifference, but there was an unspoken tension in her aura, something that Sylvia, always perceptive, had noticed long ago. Lavender had changed over the past month, not dramatically, but enough to catch the trained eye. "I'm not in love," Lavender declared, her voice as cold and unbending as a blade's edge. Her golden eyes met Sylvia's directly, unwavering. "Nonsense. A primordial demon, falling in love with someone. More or less with a primordial angel, preposterous." Sylvia smiled, her expression gentle but knowing. "You say that, Lavendachan, but I see the way you act around him. Your behavior's changed over the past month." Lavender's eyes narrowed, but there was no malice in her gaze, only a quiet, condescending amusement. "You're too sharp for your own good, Sylvia Rimuru," she said, the words wrapped in her usual aloofness. Sylvia, unfazed by the rebuke, responded with a soft chuckle, her lips curving up into a playful smile. "Thanks, I'll take that as a compliment," she replied, never one to be rattled by Lavender's biting remarks. It was one of the things that made Sylvia so approachable and loved by all who spent time with her. Her warmth was unshaken, even by the most difficult of individuals. Lavender sighed then, a small huff escaping her lips. She leaned back against the plush arm of the chair she had claimed as her own, a trace of reluctance in her movements. "Well, I do find myself more at ease around Lumiel than with anyone else," she admitted, but there was no tenderness in her voice, only cold truth. "But I don't think I'm in love with him. That's impossible, especially for someone like me." Sylvia's eyes softened, though her smile remained. She placed her cup of tea down on the table beside her, her gaze never leaving Lavender. "That's what you think, Lavendachan," she said gently. "But it's too obvious that you like him." Lavender's sharp gaze flickered towards her, a glint of something hard and distant crossing her features, but it was gone in an instant. She was careful, as always, to mask the truth. "Emotions always backfire on me," she said dismissively, her voice colder now, tinged with the bitter memories of past failures. "I've never had the luxury of letting my heart run free." Sylvia's voice softened, an understanding warmth threading through her words. "But showing emotions isn't such a bad thing, right, Lavendachan?" she said, her eyes gleaming with a mix of hope and sincerity. "If anything, it's what makes us happy, or, in your case, alive." Lavender's lip curled into a slight smirk, but the look in her eyes shifted. She didn't respond immediately, instead turning her gaze toward the far-off horizon, as if considering her own words. "Maybe," she murmured, "or maybe not." There was a pause, a pregnant silence, as Lavender contemplated the impossible. The thought that she, a primordial demon with her pride and icy reserve, might actually feel something for an angel. A being she was never meant to interact with, let alone develop feelings for, it was absurd. "Even if I do," Lavender continued, her voice quieter now, "I don't think Lumiel would accept it. After all, he's already in love with you." The words stung, though Lavender tried her best to mask it. Her gaze flickered briefly to Sylvia, her eyes flashing for just a moment, before looking away. Her pride would never allow her to admit vulnerability. At least, not without a great deal of resistance. Sylvia tilted her head, a soft frown curving her features. You might be right," she agreed slowly, her voice full of thought. "But that doesn't mean he can't have another lover, does it?" Lavender blinked, her gaze sharpening with a mix of confusion and irritation. "Another lover?" she repeated incredulously, the words foreign on her tongue. "You would share him with me?" Sylvia's smile never wavered, her voice as gentle as a breeze. "If you truly love him, I don't have an issue sharing him with you," she said simply, as though the answer was as obvious as the morning sun. "After all, love is meant to be shared, right?" Lavender's eyes widened slightly, and for the first time in a long while, she found herself at a loss for words. She, the almighty primordial demon, who had never once shared anything with anyone, not her power, her pride, or even her heart, was now being asked to share him. The thought sent a strange shiver down her spine. "Share?" Lavender muttered, her voice laced with a mix of disbelief and arrogance. "HMPH. I've never shared anything before. Sylvia's smile deepened, a playful glint dancing in her eyes. Then this would be the perfect time to try, don't you think? Lavender fell silent, her gaze flickering to the floor. There was an almost imperceptible shift in her expression, something like uncertainty, but it was fleeting. She wouldn't allow it to remain for long. She had too much pride for that. Finally, with a resigned sigh, Lavender leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms over her chest. Very well, she said with a hint of annoyance in her tone. I'll speak to Lumiel once I have my physical body. Only then will I be in a position to consider your foolish suggestion. Sylvia's eyes sparkled with approval. Perfect, she said with a soft clap of her hands. We have a week to spend some time together. No distractions, just us. Lavender scoffed, but there was no real malice behind it. Fine, she said, her voice dripping with the usual arrogance. Look at me. A proud primordial demon, now trying to confess to an angel because of this foolish emotion called love. Sylvia's smile softened, her eyes warm with understanding. But it's not a bad thing, right? Lavender's golden eyes flickered for a moment. Almost imperceptibly, she opened her mouth to retort, but for once, the words didn't come immediately. Instead, she found herself staring at Sylvia for a moment longer than usual, as if reconsidering her stance. After a pause, she sighed again, a long, drawn-out breath, before nodding, albeit reluctantly. I can't disagree with you about that, she muttered, her voice softening, though only slightly, and just like that, a strange truce formed between them, a fragile understanding that was, perhaps, the beginning of something new for Lavender. Something that had always been foreign to her. The possibility of a heart that could bend, if not break, for another. == To be continued ==